I have been in this space in human resources for almost more than 2 decades. That's almost making me feel old, but also become wiser, I suppose. And all the gray hair talks about it. This is a field that is very, very enriching because it talks about humans and their behavior in a collected space. And we work towards a common goal. Now, how do you influence it? How do you make it happen? And this is a micro of a macro. The world outside. And in the last 20 years, at least, I have seen so much is changing. The world opening up, the need of employees changing, and employers recognizing how they have to curate the organizations is changing. I think it's a very interesting space, and I love this journey. And other than my work, I think what I love a lot more is reading. I think I'm a voracious reader. I think I'm also a compulsive reader, I think. And I like writing also, writing short stories, writing articles. So that is the space I'm interested in. I've also published a book called Dotting the Blemish and Other Stories, which is a collection of short stories about women. I worked with AIG, I worked with Emphasis and matrimony.com. Each of them are different in their own way. I think in AIG, I think it was going deeper because it was a product company and also servicing the larger AIG group. Then in Emphasis, it was the scale, managing 35,000 people, and actually at scale, how do you implement larger projects and larger ideas that we seem to be having. How does it become relevant for people in different geographies, and how do you actually work on the drivers of these people? How do you work on the drivers in those businesses to make it happen? In matrimony.com, it was run up to an IPO, and it was an internet company which was going public. So how do you take an organization to public? What is the role of HR department in that space? I think I've learned a lot in all of these spaces, and this was also the time frame I'm talking about, was also so many changes happening in the outside world. And the definition of what should an HR department be doing in itself was changing. The world was actually tuning itself to that, and so for me it was very fulfilling, and also I think there was a lot to learn. I learned one. I can always say I've given so much, but the fact is that as HR practitioners, we learn a lot, because human resources is an amalgamation of psychology and anthropology and sociology. And in each of these three spaces, there is so much of work that has happened in the last 15, 20 years. Okay, I think I've also learned a lot from a system psychodynamics perspective. See, that is the what we want to believe, that people practices have become center stage, culture has become very important to everyone, but the reality is the last 15, 20 years there is a realization that this is important. Organizations want to work on that space, but how much of willingness they have put in there is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Was it intentional culture building, or unintentionally something got built and we curated that to make it happen? What is happening well is articulating values. Now organizations know that they have to articulate values and mission and vision statement and align their team members to that. But how do you align all your business processes to this requirement? How do you align all your business processes to your culture or your values is the most important critical piece, because otherwise the team members are going to experience two different things. One is something which organization is stating again and again, okay, this is our values, we live by it, but actually where the decision has to happen, when decision making is happening in real time, which are on your business processes, you're not living up to those values. So there are few companies which have done exemplary work in this space. They have invested enormous amount of thought in actually aligning their values and their core beliefs to their business processes, and their leadership development, all of that. But there are other organizations which have articulated it but have not disproportionately invested in it. When I say invest, I'm not talking about painting the wall with the values on it, Okay, that's the bare minimum you can do. Invest is how do you go back again and again, talk to your leaders about what is important to your organization. When a CEO the CEO starts a town hall, what is he starting with? What is the starting point? Is it about the revenues that you made, or is it about the culture that you want to talk about? How many times have you postponed a meeting that is very central to culture building because there is something else that became urgent? So anything around culture building is very important but never urgent. Then the CEO and his leadership team, how much of their time they are spending on this? Are they spending 10%, 15%? Are they spending 5%? That decides what the entire organization then gears up to. Organizations are realizing it is important, but in my personal view, we all can do much more. Instead of being very reactive, can we be proactive about it? See, I do not want to line up all that regulations that they have to relook at, but one simple thing which they have to focus disproportionately is technology platforms. Ensure that it is a single window for all the labor compliances, and there is ease of doing it in terms of, while we say it is online application, but is really that online working? See, you have to spend 5 days, 6 days in front of a system to upload some documents. You already lost the plot. Okay, how do you make your online actually resilient and intuitive, and ensure that all the compliances required to start, or like for example, we want to open up a new factory, everything that's required to labor licenses required to do this through one single window, and there is a very clear tat given to us saying that within this time frame this will be done. That reduces a lot of angst within the organizations when they are applying, and also there is a lot of transparency, and also inspections happen once a year. Why I'm also giving you all of this is that, why is the reason that we have all these governance or regulations around labor? The primarily because there is an employer and an employee, and the equation has to not be tilted towards who's more powerful. It has to be tilted to be very centered. And both parties are taken care of, and there are certain basic protocols that are taken by the organizations when they're setting up. When we don't make these online transparent, and inspections also being very, very clear, when those objectives are not very clear, what happens is the employee who's supposed to be the center of all of this is already not there, because this becomes a conversation between the government and the organizations, each one trying to manage each other. What has to be in the center of all of this should be the employee welfare, which will never be center. So I think we have to bring it into online platforms and single window system, and clarity on inspections, and objective of why do we do these inspections, and who does this inspection, and also clarity about all of this in a very transparent way the government has to bring in. First is physically we end up giving birth to people. Okay, so which means that we will go for a maternity leave. And it is not that once the leave is over, we can immediately come back and join work. Probably we might take an extended loss of pay and stuff like that. When we come back to work, see, first, organizations not treating giving a maternity leave as doing a favor to women employees, realizing that this is essential. If you want them to work, you have to have all these provisions taken care. And when they come back to work, do you have the systems in place that can help you make it happen? And if a young mother comes back to work, you realize that the person has been doing some other role for the past 1 year or 1.5 years. Then questioning the person to ensure that she is on par with her male colleagues in terms of being up to date on what's happening in the new technology and all of the putting a lot of more pressure on that person, the person will feel inadequate and would like to leave. Or putting a pressure on deliverables, the person feels that I will not be able to manage both and then leave. So how do you actually manage that part of it? While you might say that it is important, I have to tap into this pool, women is very important for me, they have to come back to work. But if you're not sensitizing managers around it, you're not sensitizing at a system level, at a system level, all of these small things that will drive women off coming back to work. They first, they don't come back to work after a delivery. Once they come back also, they feel so inadequate. So how do you actually prepare the system to take that understanding that it will take time, a quarter or 2 quarters, for the person to come up to speed and actually deliver at a productivity that you're expecting the person to deliver? Okay, when women, they get married, they tend to move from the cities they are currently located. Then they resign and go. But with today's understanding, last 3 years we have worked virtually, we have worked hybrid. Can we use all of that to manage this leakage for us, where we are losing people because they are not able to work, they have to move to a new city? If the role permits, can we actually look at a hybrid way of working or virtual way of working? The second is, if the woman has the second child, it becomes even more complex. There is a young child and then there is a newborn child, and expecting the women to have the same productivity will become very difficult. How does then organizations help? There are some organizations who have taken into account all of these difficulties and work with, put policies and processes and systems to support it. But not every organization is thinking in those terms. As long as we don't think in terms of addressing this at a systemic level, we will keep talking about women, why are they not coming back to work? And also women, if there is also a chance that if it is, the space is political or very hierarchical or toxic, instead of, there are times when people don't stand there and articulate it and fight for it, but they feel that the best thing is just let me move out of this place. I keep talking about it every place, that if you need to have an enormous support system back home, I still remember when I came back to work, I actually spent my whole salary in actually managing my systems at home. There was nothing question of saving and stuff like that. It was for me to go back to work. I have to had so much of support system back home to make it happen, and also articulate it in the family, saying that you're working, because even families do not understand that the pressure it takes for women to go back to work. And also sharing work at home. And the same thing, the whole psychologically, we are not there yet to realize that work at home also has to be shared. While we have educated our daughters and asked them to go and look for jobs, but we have not educated our sons so much. See, organizations have to start having conversation with academia. Okay, how organizations, we are consumers of people coming out of the colleges, and we pick them up, and we have built infrastructure on this side, on the side of the organizations, where we say as soon as we take young graduates, we put them through training and then on the job training, and we become very efficient in this whole supply chain like this. But actually it has to start one step on the other side. We have to go to the academia and say, this is the industry I'm in. Like for example, EV is very, very new. Ather is in that space. And I have to go and we are having conversations with colleges where we are talking about what is the curriculum that will help us. Or we're not asking completely change the curriculum, but include these parameters, because when they come out, they are already at least at a subject level, they understand this, what they will be getting into if they're interested. So going to colleges is very important. While in the last 20 years, so much of work happened on the side of the organizations to absorb graduates, quickly skill them and put them onto the thing. But we have not gone to the other side, actually work with the academia. you know why we don't do this? Because it is for the larger good, because everyone who is going to be studying that might not be coming inside to our organization. So we focus on who's coming into our organization, skill them up quickly, bring them up to speed, and then put them up into the production, or into work and all of that. But actually we have to go to the other side and have conversations. Some organizations are doing it, but the last 10 years, if you look at it, the number of startups, the number of new businesses, new lines that have come inside are enormous. And if these people do not have conversations with academia will be behind by 15 years. And that's the problem. That's the skill gap. They are behind us, whereas we are marching forward, and we are looking at what is required today. And that conversation has to happen. While I'm saying all this, have I done enough in my own area? Because EV is extremely new. I don't think I've done enough, and that's the sadness with which I also sit. We are having conversation, but that's not enough. We have to have more conversations and make it better. And only one last thing I would like to say before we end is that organizations have to disproportionately focus on culture, disproportionately focus on diversity, inclusion, belongingness, and equity. That's the future of organizations. It became so much more clear for us in the last 3 years with COVID. And if we don't take it as important, both CHROs and CEOs, I think we are doing a lot of disservice